Welcome, everyone. We have got another very special podcast today. It's Coin Rivet, episode number 10. Faraz Jaka, longtime poker pro, crusher, all-around good guy, great guy. We got him here. And Faraz, I hope you're doing well. Tell me, where are you and how have you been?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I am in Denver at the moment. Kind of been camping out here. It's funny. I've lived on the road for a good 15 years. My wife's kind of a vagabonder before we met as well, and we kept saying when we get married, we'll move somewhere, obviously. So we got a place in Boulder, and just like we're on the road half the time, so we're like, this is stupid. We rented our place out, went on the road. Now we had a baby. We're like, all right, we have a baby. We need to move somewhere. So we moved here. We got, an 18-month lease. And now 3 months in, we're breaking the lease for like, we got to get back on the road. So we are ending our lease in 3 weeks, and we are going to be hitting Europe for about 3-4 months on the road with a 16-month-old. First time we're going that hard with him. So it's going to be an interesting experience.
When are you starting the Europe run?
As soon as World Series, the day after the main ends, which is like January 15th, I got a wedding in Greece.
July 15th.
July 15th. Yep, got a wedding in Greece, and then after that, going to go to Turkey, then play Barcelona. There's a tournament in Cyprus right after that. Might go play that, and then I have another wedding in the south of France. So kind of those two weddings, like 2 months apart in Europe, we're like, let's just stay out there. And then come around October, we have no idea where we're gonna
go. This is a very, very interesting thing because you do a lot of content. We're going to talk about your course. We're going to look at that. I know you're pretty active on social media. You've done some streaming. You've done commentary. You've done a lot of different things in poker. What is that like when you gear up? Because I'm actually doing the same thing. Going to be traveling for 3-4 months at a time. So how is that? How with the child, with the wife? How do you kind of prepare for all that? And is it exciting? Is it overwhelming? How do you actually plan that far in advance?
Well, it's definitely exciting. I wouldn't be doing it if it was going to be overwhelming. So how do I plan for it? So I'm like very like passionate about the way I travel. Like it's like a religion to me. Just to kind of some backstory. When I graduated college, I traveled for a couple of years, not, without a home. And then I got kind of worn out. And then I moved to Chicago for a year and a half. Got sick of being normal, went back on the road. This time I lasted 15 years. So why did I get tired in 2 years? And now I went 15 years. So, one of the things was just learning that, all this stuff you think you need, you don't really need. So I started spreadsheeting like everything that I was bringing with me and putting a mark every time I used it. And I realized I use like 10% of the stuff all the time, and the rest is just there in case. So I got rid of that stuff. I basically traveled those 15 years with 2 carry-ons. And, I just learned to be super versatile with things. For example, I need an extension cord, like playing poker in weird hotel lobbies all the time, but I got one that doubles as a jump rope. And I could also tie it around my knees and do some exercises that I need to do.
Wow.
So, I'm using my freaking luggage as weights. Some of the things that wore me down was it was hard to work out. It was hard to eat healthy. So, what I realized is, I was experiencing decision fatigue. Anyone doesn't know what that means. It's every time you have to like figure out stuff, it's really draining and you just don't do it. So I was like, what's a workout routine that I could do wherever I don't have to think about it? So stuff I could do on the floor, stuff I could do with things in my luggage. Same thing with food, coming up with just like auto recipes of stuff that no matter where I am, I'm going to be able to like make that meal and I don't have to think about it. That and booking Airbnbs, new grocery stores and that kind of stuff really helped. So yeah, I'm kind of just taking out the old playbook. Obviously, like it's in family mode now, so there's definitely some new challenges, and we're going to be kind of learning those things together.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, this is going to be cool. Let me. Why don't I just vlog it? So. I've been really on and off with vlogs, but for these 3-4 months, I'll definitely be spitting out, sharing my journey and sharing my struggles and excitement. And yeah, so come join along that journey as well.
So are you on the train of take the Sony, the cameras, the vlog cameras, and then upload the cards and do that? Or are you just more on your cell phone now and doing that because the quality is so good? Because this is also something very curious to me, because I think, part of that process of uploading the extra step and doing all that, it can become a little cumbersome to do. So how do you do that? How do you go about your content vlogging?
Yeah. So yeah, I literally just have this selfie stick right here and this phone, and that's it. Um, I had a microphone. I probably need to get this again, but I had a microphone that has like a little sound, like it helps when there's a lot of wind for outdoor stuff. I probably need to grab that again. But other than that, that's it. My wife's an awesome editor, so she edits my vlogs, and she has kind of a graphic design background. And she's really good with the music as well. So yeah, that's fun. We get to kind of tag team that. I'm not doing vlogs right now because I just have way too much I'm doing, and I don't have the capacity. I love doing them. That's one of my favorite things to do, actually. So as I am kind of hiring, building out a team to help me kind of, help run the training site. I'm trying to free up more of my time so I could get back to vlogging in the future, because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it is fun. I think I like to describe it as a fancy way of journaling. It's especially at the World Series and so much of the traveling, it kind of blends together.
Yeah.
Different stuff where you're like, oh, where was I? How did this go? So when you have that, it's almost like personally, it's great if fans or people enjoy to do that,
Yeah.
but for yourself, right, to have that is like a
Yeah,
way.
because I'm doing a lot of like lifestyle blogs and then mixing a bit of poker into it. And it's funny, when I talk to a lot of bloggers, everyone tells me, do the poker stuff, the lifestyle stuff doesn't really sell well. But I love traveling, and I'm doing so much fun, cool stuff, and it's awesome to share that. And I'm a big believer that if you're just doing like what you love, like it just seems to work out.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit more genuine that way. So I'm really just trying to follow that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is. I mean, it's maybe even poker's niche, and this is even more niche. But people that do have small children, young child, parent, it's sort of, we see waves in poker. Guys that once you get a family, I think people start playing less live poker, right? They less tournaments because it's just not super conducive to a family. And I think that's also interesting to show the balance in ways that you can maybe play poker, still do it.
Exactly. It's a challenge, but I'm figuring out ways to do it, and we're making it happen. Yeah.
I love it. And what will be your World Series sort of schedule? Do you set out the exact events you want to play, or do you actually just kind of go day by day?
I'm OCD organized. I have a spreadsheet of every day in my life. It's a vertical travel schedule, and I have this going. It's up in front of me right now. I have it going back from 2012, so I could tell you everywhere I've been, every day, like what flight, what country I was in, everything back to 2012. And it's like color coded and everything. And I usually do this looking forward, so I'll usually do it like 3 to 6 months out forward. I stopped traveling for a little bit when we had the baby, so I stopped using that travel schedule. But now it's back on. Yeah.
And do you believe, looking back? I mean, I know you have a course now or you're doing this for the WSOP training and sort of preparing people. What would be just if you could give overall advice to someone who's maybe coming to the World Series for the first time? What are some of the things you think that you've really honed in on over the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah, totally. So I started a WSP prep series, and I basically built it in the way that I think you should go and study. So you could see it there if you scroll down. So if you look at these lessons right here, right. So the way you should prioritize studying is the spots that come up the most often you want to be sharp on. So for example, in a tournament, almost every pot someone raises, most people fold, and the big blind calls because they're getting a really good price. So C betting versus the big blind, you should be an expert at. Check raising from the big blind, you should also be an expert at, right? If you're calling all these crappy hands, a lot of people like don't know what to do with them later. So that's super key subject. Then you go on to the turn, your double barrel strategy, facing double barrels. And then the other thing you want to prioritize are spots where you're playing for the most amount of money. So 3-bet pots come up somewhat often, and you're playing for, a pot that's 3 times bigger than normal. That's another thing I prioritize. So on my training site, I basically have playlists that kind of guide you and kind of tell you where to start, what to prioritize. The way it works is it's 2 hour weekly live lesson with me, and they're all recorded and then they get put into the library for people who want to watch it later. And what's cool is it's super interactive. So I'll be asking people like, "Hey, what would you do in this spot?" And then I'll pick out people's answer like, "Hey, all right, can you explain to me like why you said that?" Because I think being able to explain it and hearing the logic and then work with people back and forth on the logic, that's where you really get a deeper understanding, not just kind of memorizing plays. And another thing is I really get to know my students through that process because it's me doing basically 75% of the lessons. So I can help guide them and say, hey, I think you're weak here. I think you should prioritize this. Go check out those videos. And I've gotten really good feedback on that because what I hear from my students is on a lot of other sites, they get conflicting information, like there's 20 different coaches, so they don't know, what to do. So yeah, I'm kind of keep in mind like very tight knit, just like max 3 or 4 coaches. I'm doing 50 to 60% of the content, and I pick people to work with that I actually study with and talk poker with, so that I know our strategies are a bit aligned, even if we have different strengths in different areas. Yeah.
And and how much is studying in your now what's available versus when you first started? Because like I think we came in poker around the same time. There wasn't a lot of information available, and now there is. People have gotten better. What was your original sort of methodology?
So I was purely a field player. Like I was probably like, if you look at the successful pros, I was probably in the extreme end of like a field player, not a studier. I've basically never read a poker book in my life. I've read 15, 20 pages from some. I used to really not do the training videos thing and all that, but poker just got to a point where there was so much information out there that you kind of have to do those things because it's so easy for someone new to come in and just consume a bunch of this knowledge and have better fundamentals than you, even if you're a very talented player, and they'll be able to crush you. So I kind of, maybe, I don't know when exactly, but maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, kind of just maybe 7, 8 years ago, kind of really realized that, okay, I got to really kind of transition into, getting into the solver stuff and everything. So I've totally transitioned, and I think it's great because I have this field player background, and then I also have this strong fundamentals now. And, I think the best players in the world are going to be good at both of those things. Last
Very
thing I was
cool.
going to say, I forgot. I think you asked one more question, but I'll get back to it. Yeah.
And looking back on we literally, I believe, got in the same time. I mean, you're 2000, looking here, 2007 was your first at least recorded Hen and Mob Cash. I don't know. I guess you've been playing online a bit before.
Yeah, I was playing. I started playing when I was 19. So I started playing. So it was probably 2005. Because that's 21, obviously. So I started playing college dorm games. Just some guys were playing these $5 cash games in my dorm.
And where did you grow up? What school? Where did you go?
So I grew up in San Jose, California, but I went to school in U of I, Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois. So yeah, we're playing these, $5, $10 dorm games. And I started, I was doing really well in that. So I wanted a bigger game. So I started playing at like fraternities and, just like local charity games, kind of expanding. And then we couldn't find, a bigger game, and we wanted a bigger game. So there was kind of a cool moment where we started running our own game, and eventually we got a 9-bedroom house, called it the Poker House, and like a bunch of us were playing professionally. Like it was Andy Seth was there, Ben LeFew, Kevin Schultz, who's the guy who won PCA.
BK Ice, right? That was Andy Seth.
BK Ice, yeah. So Kevin Schultz was one of my students. Ty Ryman was one of my students. And then Ty started teaching, GovShark, Robbie Ravagan. So a bunch of really sharp players in that group. And we basically had this 9-bedroom house, called it the Poker House. We ran games there daily. So it started out as just like, a few players. And then we kind of had this moment where Barry Greenstein came to Follinger Auditorium, which is like where all the big math classes were held, because he went to U of I like ages ago. And he came to do a talk. And I was like amazed at how many poker players showed up. Like I can't remember exactly how many, but it was over 1,000 people. And I was like, there's this many people playing poker here. So I had a clipboard from class, and I took a piece of paper and just wrote name, stakes, number, email, and passed it around. And I just came back with like a page full. And the next day we just had like 2 tables and like a dealer and pizzas, and we were in business. So that was really cool. We started taking weekend trips to Vegas. I'd have like one class on Friday, would just fly out on Thursday, be in Vegas like till Tuesday, playing like 10-20 no limit at the Bellagio. That definitely didn't have the bankroll for it. It was just kind of trying to run it up. Didn't really have, I didn't have understanding of bankroll acknowledgement or fundamentals or any of that. I was just out there playing. So college was a wild ride.
That's yeah, it's almost like 21, right? The movie, but for
Mhm.
poker. And similar again, same thing. I was going to AC, and I remember this is like the most fun, right? Like
Yeah.
building the role. I mean, now it's great, family, having courses and doing content, but it's like
Yeah.
the journey of becoming a poker professional is pretty intense, and a lot of uncertainty, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
didn't make it, or
Yeah.
found other career paths. So it's pretty cool to be
Yeah,
in
and you know
for.
what? Something I wanted to add to you were asking about how important studying is and stuff. So,
Mhm.
studying and learning those fundamentals super important, but absolutely, like being in your flow state and finding your A game and paying attention to the table, like that is still just so important, especially in live poker. So that's something I really take very seriously as well. And I try not to like once I'm like at the series, I try not to like study and learn too much new stuff, because when you're doing new stuff, you have a little bit of regression. You're
Mhm.
kind of experimenting, you're getting in these weird spots you're not used to. So, the time to study and prepare for the World Series is now, right? You don't want to wait till like a week before it. And then during it, I kind of focus more on getting in my flow state, playing my A game, and then also relearning some of the things I already learned. So, I take notes when I'm studying and kind of have like little cheat sheets for myself. So I try to review previous stuff just to kind of remember and sharpen up and retain that information.
Very, very cool. And what would you say? What would be your biggest piece of advice someone getting into poker today? If they were like, they've casually seen it on TV or
Yeah.
seen some content, they want to go to the World Series. What would be the one thing you would say to someone that's diving
So
in?
so I tell people there's 3 things you need to do to be successful in poker and stay ahead of the curve. It's pretty simple. You just need to do them. So the first is you need to be documenting your own hands. I'm still amazed how many people don't do this. So I have a notepad. Every tournament I play, I write down my difficult hands. A lot of people, when I see them how they're writing hands, they have like really long paragraphs, and it's just not organized well. So if anyone ever needs help with that, just DM me. I have an example that I share with my students. I'm happy to share that with you as well. So you need to learn how to document hands. If you're playing online, you have Poker Tracker or whatever. And now you need to, review these hands like once a week, or review with a friend, by yourself or with a friend. So that's sorry, I got a little sidetracked. So one is documenting your hands and reviewing them on your own. The second is having a community of people to talk with. So I've always had like a WhatsApp group or SMS group where I could ask friends, hey, what would you do here? We debate about hands, or even just talk about best practices. Like, what games should you be playing? What chart should you be using? What solvers, right? Because there's always new resources coming out. And if you don't have people to talk to, you might be using some old, outdated stuff, and you're not using the best stuff. So I also created a student Discord group because I wanted to emulate that experience that I've had all my career for my students. So have that. And the last thing is consuming learning content. Whether that's through a one-on-one coach or a training site or a book, right? There's so much stuff out there, and you cannot take it all in. No one can. So it's all about understanding how to prioritize and be efficient, and maximum retention of the stuff, like note taking and some of that stuff. So those are kind of the 3 philosophies I really try to train my students, using those 3 philosophies.
Very cool. And just kind of flashing back down memory lane here, we see, I want to talk about your sort of career journey with poker, and
Mhm.
saw you had a cash in 2007, and then, take first in 416 entries, $1,000 buy-in. I've a couple faces like Matt Brady, some other familiar names here, but you take this tournament down. What was this like, and how big of a
That's
boost was this for your
no,
career and
no,
confidence?
no. I don't think anyone's asked me about this specific win. That's a good question. I was in college. I was skipping class to go play LAPC, and had my first epic win. Like it was amazing. Um, I remember Oh, I guess this was my first trip to Vegas. So
Well,
yeah, I'm
this
trying to.
was LA, right? This was the Commerce.
Yeah, this was Commerce where all the side events were huge. So yeah, it was just I think I was out in LA for like a week and a half to play like the side event and a main. So yeah, this was the first win, first live win. Just kind of made it feel real. You know, I remember playing with like Sammy Farha and some other people on this trip that I'd seen on TV, and it was cool to just kind of sit there and be like, okay, like I could have an edge on these guys. Like, you know, like there's nothing special. Like, I mean, yeah, they're great players, but you know, they're not superhuman. Like I can do this and I could outplay them in some hands. And that was just like a really cool confidence boost to kind of feel that. That was like some of the cash games I was playing like outside of that tournament. Yeah.
Very cool. And so, you know, winning that, what was, give me your, I'm always curious about family and sort of background on
Yeah.
how, yeah, people, friends close to you, what were people kind of telling you, thinking, and were you just
Yeah.
so sure you could get it done? And what were you getting? Were you getting resistance from family
So,
members, or
so
just
my family was like super against poker. You know, they're conservative, religious. So you know, just not was not into the poker thing. You know, saw it as gambling, and I was hiding it from them before. Like the way my dad found out I was playing poker was there's an article in the newspaper at my university that was like student wins 180 grand playing online poker. And that's how I found out I was in poker, playing poker.
so you weren't sharing that success. You were not like telling your parents, "Hey, I'm some six-figure scores. I started with
Mm,
a few $100s online or whatever,
yeah,
and now I've got,
no,
you know, a
yeah.
bankroll." They wouldn't have been impressed or interested to hear
Ye
that.
what it was just something like so like something they were so against that like
Right.
I just knew like they wouldn't understand. But this was this that's actually a really interesting question because the way I used to operate was I would kind of hide stuff from my parents because there's just like this cultural difference of me, you know, growing up first generation in America, them, you know, growing up in Pakistan.
Yep.
And you know, it's anyone who's first generation will tell you like there's a lot of challenges there with the cultural difference. And so, you know, I used to hide this stuff from them. And then this kind of blew up in my face, right? Because you know they found out about this, and then you know they're really worried about it, and then coincidentally I ended up losing everything and going 30K into debt. And this is like the ultimate like I told you so from like my family, which obviously I was super embarrassed about, like got super depressed. Like that was, you know, that can be like a chapter in a book in its own sense, that period. But you know what me and my kind of dad both learned is that you know by him being like overly strict about things, you know, I was just gonna like not tell him things. And you know, by me not telling him things, like he can't actually like guide me as a father. And kind of what when this happened, you know, I really hit rock bottom, and you know, when I lost everything, and I was like worried that he was gonna be like super pissed, but like instead he was like super concerned. And it just like, you know, like the fatherly kind of thing came out. And after that, like our relationship never was like bad, but it's gotten like much better because I can just like be super open and honest about everything, and we both kind of realize like that's the best way to go about things, because sometimes you just need to have really difficult conversations. And yeah, you know, it might lead to like a really rough few weeks or even a couple months, and you need to work through it. But in the end, like things are just so much better now because I can just be open about it. You know, my dad really sees what I'm doing as a business now. You know, once he saw my spreadsheet, started hearing me use terms like ROI and stuff like that. You know, because he's a business guy himself, so he, you know, he gets it. And you know, even for some of my family members, like, you know, even if they still fully don't get it, like they can see that I carry myself responsibly and handle myself well. And you know that stuff goes a long ways. Yeah.
And would you say that, you know, now looking back, like, is it because I mean, this is not really, it's sort of similar in the sense that my parents didn't have any really idea about poker, and then they knew I was
Yep.
playing. I would tell them, but you know, my dad started playing. Like he loves it. He plays online all the time. It's such a good mental game. He really is like, I wish I had found this earlier in my life because of the skill sets and
Yeah.
the learnings, and
Totally.
like he gets it
Yeah.
with me. So is that sort of, is that how, where it's come to with your parents, or are they still kind of like, you know, worried, or they know that there's longevity and that you're a very solid guy now, and can handle the stuff, but how do they feel now?
Yeah, I think for my dad who understands kind of business and sees like how I'm managing my money and stuff, he gets it. Yeah. But yeah, you know, so some some other family members that maybe don't have as much of a business background, like I think that's going to be hard for them to understand. But what's interesting is definitely like being on like a magazine cover and being on TV and like all this stuff, like in some sense it's meaningless, right? Like to us who play poker, we know it just doesn't really mean anything. Like a bad player can come be on TV and run good, get on a magazine cover. But for people outside of poker, it really like legitimizes it for them. So it was interesting. Like I had people who knew I played poker throughout college, and I guess they still just didn't really take it that serious what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, like I'm on a magazine cover, and you could just tell they're like treating me different. And like the magazine was about like wins I had like a year ago. So like nothing's changed in the last year, but to them, they just like see it totally differently now. Because it's kind of an old school way for people to kind of judge things, but it's just the reality of how the outside world sees it, right? So these things like bracelets and TV and all that stuff, like a lot of poker players will say it's meaningless, but I think it is meaningful, especially to people who they're just not in the industry. It's hard to understand some things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right? That's
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of just like I find that interesting in golf, baseball, like even a movie like Moneyball, where it's like you start. I don't know if you've seen that, but you get
Yeah.
to sort of the intricacies of the pitch count and like the
Yeah.
differences in
Well,
budgets for the teams. Like it's very fascinating to understand. Like once you kind of immerse yourself with within a specific
and
niche.
poker's like way more difficult to understand because at least for like all those sports, like the best people always win, like right, like in general, right? And poker's like the one game where like it's just not like that. So it's so hard. Like unless you're a good poker player, it's really hard to understand who's a good poker player. And poker's really unique in that way. Right, like even people writing the articles and the magazines and the announcers, like they also, like, unless they're really good poker players themselves, it's going to be hard for them to know who's good, and they're just going to have to judge by results. um, right, that's not knocking them, it's just the nature of how it is.
Um, yeah, it's I just I think we're so similar in the sense that we understand the power of poker and like how it kind of translates to so many areas of life. And
Yeah.
and I know that I put you in the content creator category, someone that is provides a lot of value for others, that you reach out, like you said, people can DM you,
Yeah.
get a hold of people. You really want to help people grow and understand the game and put it in a
Yeah.
positive light. So I think that's great, and I think it's a bit well, how do you call it? Like poker kind of, even like Rounders, where that was sort of like the original time when I got
Yeah.
into it. Moneymaker Rounders, saw that
Mhm.
movie, it was amazing. I like really, it was like when I
Yeah.
was so high and excited into poker. But like even then, it's like, look at Queen's Gambit, this type of thing that had a help. I think you could credit to a chess boom. I think
Yeah.
poker doesn't really have a super positive, uplifting sort of story. Like the guys like from our generation that started with
Yeah.
almost nothing, built a role, went to college, got whatever, successful in business. I mean, there's a lot of really feel good, true stories in poker that
Yeah.
isn't really, when you look at Rounders is a great movie, but it's also kind
Mhm.
of like seedy. There's back alley stuff. There's some,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like kind of portrays poker. And I
Yeah.
think what a lot of people sort of think about as poker, like when you tell people a
Yeah.
poker professional, sometimes you don't know how they're going to respond to that. And then it turns into like, a lot of times you find that maybe you're the most interesting guy at the table, right?
Yeah.
People are
Okay.
like,
So
like, man, like, oh, really? You do that for a living? It's not fake or
So
it's whatever.
I have this debate with some of my friends because I remember when we would go to, because I have a friend who, like, when he goes to bars and meets girls, like he's hesitant to say he plays poker because he thinks they'll perceive it as wrong. And I'm like, I like think the opposite. Like I usually always very proudly like, oh yeah, I play poker professionally. Like just say it, like, and I think it's like how you say it, how you present, and then they ask you some questions and you're really passionate and excited about it. And a lot of times when people don't know how to judge something, they're going to judge it based on like their read on, like, so if you're like eyes are to the floor and you're like, you sound like really ashamed, like, yeah, of course, like they're just going to think it sounds like stupid. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it's all how you carry yourself, how you present it. And yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing game. And I mean, again, I think we're both so grateful, obviously, for what poker has been able to provide and opportunities and networking and people and
And
just
I just want to
experiences.
touch on something you said, like, yeah, like poker has all these, like you're saying, it kind of like a lot of like the bad sides of it get publicized, the good sides don't enough. I agree with that. But also, I don't know, I just like poker is the human jungle. Like that's how I kind of look at it, right? Like like it's super risky, right? Like there are sketchy people out there looking to take advantage of you. But by dealing with those people, it makes you smarter, it makes you sharper. Like when I go and talk to, my friends that did maybe a more traditional career route, I hear them in later years, like getting involved into business stuff or loans and stuff. And like, you're like, wow, like these people are like handling it like super fishy. Like I learned these things when I was 19. So it's like with high risk come, with great risk and great reward, right? So there's a lot of risk being in the poker world, but it also makes you stronger, sharper. And yeah, like, you want a safety net, you'll be safe, but you also won't learn as much. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's really well said. I mean, I actually, like, part of sort of my transition too within poker in the last couple of years, and really was deep into streaming and Twitch and content vlogging, all that. It's such a grind and it's so fun.
Yeah.
But ultimately, kind of what I realize is like that is part of the bigger message and picture I want to do, is like I want to be involved with poker and promoting it in a positive light, showing people how you can apply to the real life, right? How skill sets you learn. And I always talk about this, like, so similar to the golf, where you get to kind of learn about someone very quickly at a poker table, how they handle their wins and losses, how they handle other people's wins and losses. Are you bitter? Are you celebrating other people?
Yeah.
How do you, when you lose a pot, are you cursing and slamming the table, or are you just nice hand, move on, have fun, smile? Like these are all things that
I literally have a 12 tweet storm pinned to my Twitter right now about exactly what you just talked about what poker reveals about people. Check it out if you guys are interested.
You have to send me a link. We can put that in the show more in this
that's a good one
as well. But so anyway, I could go on a long tangent about that, but again, I think we're very aligned. And before I did want to actually, before I go through a little more of your poker career, because there's a stretch here that's just insane, three in a row of like insane. We're going to cover that, but I do want to pivot for a quick second to Coin Rivet. Got a shout out. This is the Coin Rivet podcast, crypto and not fun days for crypto at the moment. Down 18% this week, 8% almost today. Pretty wild.
Hey, it's fun if you're sitting on cash, because I personally, not investment advice, but I think it's a great time to be loading up. These are opportunities. If you played your cards right ahead of time and didn't put everything on the table, that's how I see it.
Yes, and it could be. It's all timing, right? It's all entry point. If you got in at 2015 or 16 or 12, bless you. If you got in, the whatever, when it was at its peak,
I will say I made the mistake of putting too much on the table, like during other bull runs, and something kind of I've changed with my strategy is kind of do my big buys when people are panicking. Like not on these like small corrections, but in these massive corrections. Like those are just like, if you look at any of the massive corrections, like if you bought during any of those, like you probably did pretty well. So I just try to keep cash reserve for those moments now.
Yes, well said. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on crypto NFTs, but I do want to just give me a price prediction, because we have a chart with the guest. Your number 10 on CoinRivet. What is your Bitcoin and Ethereum price prediction for January 1, 2023?
Oh God. Price prediction for January. I definitely think we're going to be above like at least 43, 45. Like I think that's probably more like worst case scenarios, I would think. Yeah, I would say above 43, 45. I would expect, we see some nice bounce at some point, a lot of sideways action. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. And Ethereum?
Ethereum, let's see. Let's go with 5K.
Okay. Good. I always like to kind of see too.
Oh wait, sorry. Ethereum's at 2,300 right now.
Really, yeah, it's dumping hard. Right on pace.
2,300. Okay, let's go with 4,400.
4,400. And
obviously these price predictions can be all over the place. I'm not saying these
are
very high probabilities.
Hey,
but if you're forcing me to pick something, that's what
you are official. Yeah, you are definitely. We need to get something on the books again. Yeah, of course, not financial advice, just kind of fun to see where it all ends out.
I'm not a trader following the charts super closely. I'm passively. I have some sharp people around me I talk to, and I try to get a general good understanding of things. But yeah, definitely not an expert.
Very, very cool. All right, so we got your prices locked in. We'll put that on the chart. You're officially in there, and then we're gonna dive back into some more poker talk. And tell me about this heater, because looking at your career, you have a win, 100K. You get a trophy. It's nice, a lot of confidence, feels some validation, right? Probably just overall, just a good moment for you, in terms of bankroll, in terms of confidence, all that. But then, you go for a while and everything's like whatever, a couple of scores keeping you around, afloat, some things, and then boom, you hit a real score, a really real score, and another one
Yep.
with some
Back to
podium
back.
finishes in World Poker Tour events. Probably amazing, but also to touch, to taste like the at this stage on television. So World Poker Tour, everything's hot and pipe. And what was going on here? How did these scores, how did this all come to light? And I mean, it's crazy that there's not another score in between. It was just like bang, 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 but then
Yeah.
no other like mini little scores or
Yeah.
whatever. It was just like three huge ones. What
Yeah.
how's that even possible?
Yeah, that was an insane year. Yeah, the few years before that, I had a ton of confidence and I felt really strong about my game, but the big wins weren't coming, and I was just on the grind chasing it. I hear a lot of other players like like frustrated, like figuring out what's not working, and lots of times it's really just variance and being able to fight through it. So I was just fighting through it, and yeah, I just had my epic breakout year. Once you're winning like that, you play with a lot more confidence, and people sense that confidence. So I think you play a little bit better and they play a little bit worse against you. Especially like back then when, like I said, there wasn't a lot of like educational stuff on fundamentals. So I was just putting people in like epically tough spots and playing like a really unique style, and people didn't really know how to deal with it. Eventually you just be like, all right, this guy's three betting too much. I'm going to do this. Like back then, like, it was like, you got to figure out how to like out battle this guy. Cause you don't have solvers just telling you like the answers. So yeah, that was a crazy run. Right. So it started with, I think it was, yeah, a televised WPT final table, and then the WSOP 6 max, and then another televised WPT one. So yeah, pretty crazy story towards the end. I was chip leader of the 25K Bellagio Championship, and I was in first place for Player of the Year for WPT. And this was the last tournament of the season. So yeah, you'll probably see a 25K somewhere if you go like towards the end of, let's see, Bellagio. Yeah,
Of 8 or 9?
it should be 2010, I believe,
Okay, so
Bellagio,
now, all right, so
because it's a
yeah, yeah,
2009
there it is
2010
then.
season. Yeah. So yeah, basically I'm like chip leader with, I don't know, 18 left, and I'm number one for player of the year, but there's like five people who can catch
Mhm.
me. And I end up busting out in like, I don't remember, like, yeah, like I actually misread my hand in like a really messed up spot versus David Williams. And yeah, I busted in 14th, and he went on to win the tournament. And I just felt like shit. Like I think there's only been one time where like my eyes were like a little teary eyed, and I was just like feeling like so much intensity. Like, oh, that's only happened to me once. It was this tournament. I just remember in the payout line, like just like you're like chip leader 18th, you're going to win player of the year, and now you're like misread your hand or like misread the board, and like you're out in 14th, and like you might not get player of the year. And you were just about to win like $1.5 million maybe. So just super intense.
Wow.
I'm the type of guy that when I mess up, I really want revenge to like do better. So I remember like Tilt booking a trip to Monte Carlo like the next day to go play EPT Monte Carlo. And I'm flying to Monte Carlo, and the final table is happening, and Sean Buchanan's like there with like 4 or 5 people left, and he's gonna overtake me for player of the year if he gets like, I don't know, second or third or something. And I'm like sweating it on my phone while I'm like about to, I'm on it, getting on an international flight to go to Monaco. And I lost service. We're on the flight. I got this 10-hour flight, like this sweat, and I landed and turned on my phone, and it just had like a flood of texts. And the first one was from my dad, like, "Congratulations, player of the year."
Wow.
So that was a sick sweat.
Well, oh, because he got third, so it must have been he had to get second.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was such a sick sweat.
Wow. Nice. That's nice to have, right? Those are, it's like ultimately accolades, the scores, these Hen and Mob, and getting to reminisce and go down memory lane. But yeah, trophies and player of the years and all this, it is fun, right? It's a big deal. I mean, you're talking about the best in the
Yeah,
world.
when you go, you know, you're doing charity events, or you're talking to people outside of poker, and they're like, "Oh, like, have you won a bracelet?" And you're like, "No." So they just think like, "Oh, you know, you're nobody." But it's like, "Oh, I won Player of the Year." It's like, "Oh, wow, like that's amazing, right?" So
Yeah.
even like if I got second in Player of the Year, like it wouldn't make a difference in like how good of a player I am. But obviously, from the outside world, like that's the only way to view it. Yeah, so
Right.
it's interesting.
Makes perfect
Yeah,
sense. It's very, very cool. And I mean, that's one of the best parts about poker, right? The action, the sweats, you know, the combination of skill and luck, but just putting yourself in winning positions, and then, you know, ultimately still stuff can happen. Again, that's another lesson in life where it's a really big thing about results oriented. You know, I know it's something you obviously understand in variance. It's like a lot of times you can make good decisions or good investments or put yourself in good situations. It doesn't always, you know, pan out, right? And that's important to be
yeah.
able to deal with that mentally. And I think a lot of people in poker that have done it and withstood the test of time, or at least experienced it. And the best part is you don't have to necessarily be a winning poker player, right? There's probably losing poker players that have taken that into a net positive for
Oh,
their
for
life,
sure.
for their
Yeah, I
business,
think
for their
you
personal.
touched on this earlier about how much you learn playing poker. So, like, even just like the way you analyze the world, right? Like, a lot of people like they'll look at like, oh, I dated this person and it didn't work out. Like, that was a mistake. Like, I'm an idiot. Whereas it's like, no, like the information you have now, you didn't have at the time of your decision. So like, right, not be results orientated. You made the best decision at the time with the information you had, right? You're just like, you get hyper analytical about thinking about all your life decisions like that, you know, career choices, going to school, all sorts of things. So yeah. And you know, I talk to a lot of recreational players because, you know, a lot of the people I coach are recreationals or semi pros. And a lot of them are just passionate about that, you know, that it's this competitive spirit. It teaches them this different way of thinking. And yeah, of course they want to win, but it's that other stuff that's really rewarding for them.
Yep. Makes perfect sense. And then I mean during this time period though, so you did go on that heater. What was that like playing on the bright lights? I mean, you get the 5K 6 max, third place, big score, right? Was that a significant increase in your bankroll and sort
Yeah,
of
for
every,
sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then confidence wise you go, and you know this is now what, 2 weeks later, not even,
Yeah.
you hit this score and your heads
Yeah.
up for a
Yeah.
World Poker Tour title. What was this like?
Yeah, so this was the first one, right? Yeah, this was the first score before those
First
three,
big
I think.
WPT. And
Yeah.
this is where Justin Smith, I believe, got injured on the rail. Is that right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
ACL or
yeah,
something? I mean,
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was actually I was my bankroll was getting low like earlier that year. So like for the first time ever, I took like a backing deal. It was Vivek Rajkumar and Yevgeny Timoshenko were like tag teaming backing me. And part of the reason I want to do is just to be able to talk hands with them, which was really nice. And like I think I like was backed by them by only like I don't know a short period, like 6 months. Like I just went on this heater, and then I ended the deal. And then right after I ended the deal, I had that third place in the Bellagio for the 550K. So that one was on my own dime then, which is nice. Um, yeah, it would have been nice to get those wins. That's super unfortunate. Like, you know, when you get I've gotten a lot of thirds and seconds in my career, and that's leaving a lot of money on the table. And obviously, like I said, getting those wins, you know, is nice. But you know, I'm still hungry, and I'm getting back on the tour now. You know, I've built my business to a point where I have like a team helping me. I'm still doing like a lot of work. Like you know, I'm spending like 30 hours a week running my business and then, you know, trying to play and study on other hours, but I'm trying
right.
to continue building a team so I could take that time down further. And, you know, like I'm going to be in Europe playing a bunch and getting on the grind. So I'm hungry. I'm not done. You know, I plan on winning, you know, some major titles and a bracelet. Like I'm definitely got a lot more work to do.
And would you say, as someone that is very motivated, very focused, you know, you mentioned spreadsheets and sort of organized, what are some goals that you have? I mean, we see that you're coming in at almost 7 million in lifetime earnings. You know, it's a significant number.
Yeah.
This is just live. You know, this
Yeah.
isn't cash
I
money.
think
This
online
isn't
probably another
pipeline.
4 or 5 or so. Yeah.
And do you look at the all-time money list? Do you look at a particular place that you are, you know, ranked within, you know?
Something I literally just wrote a post about this in our Discord group because I had some students like goal setting in our Discord group saying, "Oh, I want to make 100K this year" and stuff like that. And I had to push back on them because I learned early in my career, you can't make financial goals if you're a tournament player, just because there's so much variance in it, and it's just going to leave you disappointed. Or you're going to get lucky and it's going to make you give yourself more credit than you deserve, right? So you want to judge how good you feel about yourself based on the things you have control over, right? So like you want to set goals that are very measurable. So for example, you can set, this is another thing I did another tweet storm on, right? You can set a goal saying, I'm going to watch 3 hours of content per week. I'm going to spend 2 hours reviewing hands per week. I'm going to learn one new like program a quarter. Right now, that's something you can easily look back on and say, yes, pass or fail, like I did it or I didn't do it. And there's certain activities where if you just do those things consistently, right? I talked about those three things earlier, you will be ahead of the curve and you will be winning. So I want to look back and see that, I did the things I needed to do to succeed. And, I maintained playing my A game. And when I wasn't, I was able to make changes to kind of get myself, back where I need to be. So yeah, I'm just measuring like how well I'm playing, not the results, because
Right.
I could run bad for the next 2 years and do everything perfect, right? That could happen.
I think that's another, yeah, to touch on that, to add to that, that is very important. I agree about, yeah, I had a period of time too where I'd say, oh, I want to make this seven,
Yeah,
these are my financial goals, but it's more important to put in the time. I'm going to study this much. I'm going to
yeah,
play this many tournaments this year. I'm going to play this much online. I'm going to, yeah, like tangible goals, not ones that are just going to be, based on if you
yeah.
win a key flip or two in the
Yeah,
year.
what an advice I'll give, because something I learned was that I used to write poor goals, and most people do. Like whenever you write a goal, you should make sure it's not vague and not up to like a judgment call. It should be
Mhm.
very clear that it's like black and white, pass, fail. Like either you did this or you didn't do it. It shouldn't be up to anyone's interpretation.
Right. And not only anyone's interpretation, but you can't control others either, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't control how much,
yeah,
if you want to say, I want to be player of the year, there might be a guy out there that says, they're just going to not miss one event in the whole world. He's going to
yeah,
fly, do
yeah.
stuff that you're not going to do. You can't control what others are doing.
Yeah.
So you
And
just
yeah, and what I mean is also like you can't say one of your goals can't be to like play your like play well, like
yeah.
how do you judge like what's playing well and what's not playing well? Like that's just not measurable. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just super, super, super true. Very, very well said. Now, and here I see online you had another close here you got second in a WSOP online big purse. This was GG International, and this was for the
Oh
World
yeah.
Series bracelet. What are your thoughts about being World Series bracelet like online? How do you feel there should be an asterisk? Do you think it's legit? Do you think it's oversaturated? How do you feel about this?
Um I'm generally more okay with it than other people are. Um I mean it's up to the brand, right? Like what like they're like for WSOP bracelets is a way for them to get people into the market, get them to play tournaments. It's a marketing tool. And it's really hard to speak from an outside perspective when you don't have the data that they have. Right? It's just an opportunity cost of like, all right, if we throw out these more bracelets, we're going to get more people playing these things. But if you do it too much, you dilute it too fast. It's hard to have a strong opinion without being back there and understanding their numbers. But my guess is it probably dilutes it less than people think. When I talk to random people, like everyone's still like, "Do you have a bracelet?" Like no one's like running around being like, "Oh, like bracelets are me." I don't know. The bracelet's strong, man. Like people still want one. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously they should be thoughtful about not over diluting it, but yeah, I think people were overreacting a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think it is. It's also you could argue it's difficult. Online tournaments can also be more
Oh yeah,
difficult
for sure.
than
Like how like you have a problem with someone winning a bracelet against 2,000 players, but you don't mind when they're playing against like 60 players like online or live.
yeah,
We got to remember that, when Brunson, a lot of these people, Helmuth won a lot of their bracelets, like there was only like 30, 40, 50, 60 people. And I don't know how long, but probably for a good 5, 6, 7 years, it was like that, right? So yeah, there are going to be periods in poker where it's going to be easier to get a bracelet, either because the fields are smaller or maybe because the sites are doing some experimentation or trying to push their online site. It might not be like that forever, but if there's a few years it's like that, like whatever, like this is a long-term game, like not just we got to zoom out and look at poker over the 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think? Black Friday, 2011, April 15th, tax day was a dark, crazy time, right? People, just a lot of confusion. The DOJ messages come up, people's money's frozen, and then the money got refunded. There was some different things that happened, and everything kind of got in order. What are you thinking now, over 10 years later, coming up literally 11 years now, just right now, that there's not online poker legalized at a federal level everywhere, that it's just, I guess actually it is federal, state by state, but that it's not back? I mean, is that shocking you? Would you ever have imagined that right now the US would not have like every state where you can play? And I mean, it seems crazy.
Yes and no. Like it's just, governments are slow. Like we know that, and they're inefficient. And poker is relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So, the same way it got blocked, like it was just like a small little like addition to like a bill that had nothing to do with it. Once I kind of understood that, it kind of just made me realize like that this is small peanuts to them. And it's just like a small little like negotiating thing back and forth, that yes, to us, it's like our entire world and it's so big and important. But, on a global scheme, it's very small. So from that, I just kind of realized that there's going to be a lot of variance in kind of where it gets thrown, and if it's complicated to figure out how to do it fairly and how to get the tax revenue a certain way, it's like, all right, there's it's not worth a lot to them, but like it's a big time suck to figure out. Usually those are things you kind of don't deal with. They're not worth your time to deal with. So I'm just kind of realistic that that's how it is to them. But it is slowly getting legalized state by state, and now they're starting to kind of mix player pools. I think in the last couple of years, like I'm not following it super closely, but it seems like it's had a lot of good stuff happen. And people are going to see, like a lot of the big important states are waiting to see how it kind of pans out with these other states. And it seems like it's going in the right direction, and I wouldn't be surprised, like any year now we just have a big state do it. And it kind of has a domino effect that the rest just follow them.
Yeah, it's I do think it's always like poker's always one step forward, two back, couple steps forward. There's like good news, and things seem to start coming together. And then there's some,
I think the gambling in the US has in terms of like sports betting and stuff, like we've seen a lot of like legalization there. And poker's always been kind of a user acquisition tool to casinos and sports betting and gambling sites. So it could just be a matter of time till a big player in the sports betting online casino world says, hey, we need online poker, and they're going to fight for it. And now you kind of have the NFL kind of in bed a little bit with the online casinos and sports betting sites, and they actually have a lot of influence and pull with the lobbyists and stuff. So I think the cards are set up in a good way. But again, I'm not following it super closely, but just like intuitively, it feels like the cards are set up in a good way for us right now.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on daily fantasy sports betting and all this? It seems to be becoming so just nonchalant. They put the lines up on the screens, whereas years ago it was taboo and it was like sports betting's bad, and now it just seems to kind of be a thing. Where do you stand on daily fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an owner's perspective in the NFL and stuff, it's just like yeah, obviously for them it's like a perception thing, right? So at first, like they don't want to be involved with betting because they don't want anyone to think they're sketchy and the games are rigged, and that's something that over and over in history has come up in sports throughout the world. But now I think what they've seen is sports betting and fantasy sports is helping viewership, and like a large percentage of the revenue for NFL teams is based on viewership. So rather than you watching your one team, you're sweating like 10 teams now because you have all these sports bets and a fantasy team. So now their viewership skyrockets and the revenue skyrockets, and that's part of the reason why I think part of the reason NFL is doing so good over the last 5-6 years is the increase in fantasy sports and people rooting on a bunch of different players. So yeah,
it's fascinating. It's a fascinating time. There's technology that's happening, like real-time data, stats. People are able to watch these different apps and very quickly from anywhere. So I mean, it does seem like all that's going in the right direction. I think that ultimately people realize for addiction or gambling or whatever, it's like, look, people that don't have control, whatever area that is, are going to find a way, and there are going to be the outliers of people that are irresponsible. But ultimately, like, people should be able to be entertained how they like, within reason. And there are also a lot of protocols in place.
Learning how to manage yourself is an important skill. I do think there should be some limits, with anything that's like very addictive, and so I think it's good that there's like you don't want someone to be able to wipe out their family's fortune like over a night, being drunk and tilted, right, so you should have some limits. And they, I'm sure they could find better ways and more efficient ways to do that. But it's tricky, when you're dealing with like old legacy like laws and rules and stuff. And I think the biggest thing with both poker and sports betting and casinos is just a lot of these rules need to get rewritten. We see like a lot of the rules for like the online gaming sites like written before online existed. So they're like rules that are about live poker, and they have to implement this into the software, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like I remember, I was involved in, doing an online gaming site and going through the licensing process when we were looking into the Nevada market. There's this thing where every time you make an update in your software, it sets off a code red, in the licensor's office, and you got to go, print out a bunch of paperwork to explain how it didn't change the fairness in the game. Now, if you're a tech company, like you need to be rolling out updates like constantly. That's how you improve your product. And then we all look at WSOP.com and we see like, oh, like why does this software suck, and how come they don't do anything about it? Well, it probably has something to do with that. Right? It's just too expensive to make software updates. And the general like poker players don't understand that. They're just like, oh, they're idiots. And I do think there's things they probably can do better, but I bet a lot of it is out of their control, and it's more to do with the way the laws are written. And we need someone to, go in there and fight to get those things changed.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting time, and I think that there is. I think part of the problem with poker too is it sort of gets piggybacked in with casino versus like the sports side, like where I thought maybe it could just come on with some of the fantasy laws and bills, but it's kind of sort of in that side of it. That's where they have it packaged, and it's a bit unfortunate. But again, I think that bullish on poker, bullish on that, and I think the more
poker's booming right now. The way to me, that's what it looks like. Field sizes are huge. There's so many people that I'm coaching. Like I asked them their story, and a lot of people, it's like, oh, I used to play Black Friday. I went and got a job. I started a business. I got some more disposable income now. I've always loved poker, and I want to just come back and play, as like a competitive hobby.
For sure.
A lot of people like that over the last 2 years have come back. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Well, Faraz, this is we've covered a lot. I know poker wise, again, if you guys want to check him out check out the Hendon Mob, kind of run through his career. Very impressive, a lot of major scores. Longevity, and Faraz also has the course, as we mentioned, and you of course can follow him.
I'll if you guys are interested in checking that out, it's jakacoaching.com, and it's $99 a month, and we have a library of over 60 videos now, and you also get weekly 2-hour lessons. So go ahead, check it out. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. It's at Faraz Jaka. Week in, week out, I'm just throwing out tips and dropping knowledge and stuff that I think will help you guys. And then if you want to check out those vlogs, I'm Faraz Jaka Poker on YouTube.
Oh, wow. We didn't see, I didn't put I knew we were forgetting something. Faraz Jaka Poker. There we go. Actually, I don't know if I need to get, boom. There it is. You got videos up there. You put your stuff, and again, very, very, very few people have the coverage you have. It's like being a diverse player that can play a lot of hands. If you have board coverage, right? It's nice. You can cover all aspects. Like you cover a lot of the boxes you tick on social, which is it's not easy. You got to have a team. You got to be hungry and motivated, and you do a fantastic job. And as we showed on Instagram, on Twitter, please give Faraz a follow. You saw his coaching there.
You do a pretty awesome job yourself, I must say. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm kind of like, I have moved into more of a content creator over the last few years. I honestly enjoy it more than just playing, but it's, again, it's a beautiful game. Very grateful for it. A lot of great people that I know we have met, friendships and just opportunities have come through poker. And I think that we're aligned to make the game the best it can be and keep
yeah.
pushing it forward. And we'll be wishing you a lot of success on the upcoming WSOP as well as other events you're playing. And be sure to check out his course as well. And I appreciate it so much. And we're going to go ahead and see you on in the future. Appreciate you so much. That's episode number 10, Coin Rivet Podcast in the books. Faraz Jaka, thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you soon and enjoy the World Series. Enjoy traveling with your family. And thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Take it easy.
Cheers.